thanks to the Lord, for He is good. For He is good. His love endures forever.
Well, I don't know if you could hear that, but that song would be a good theme for this talk today. Hello, my name is Sean McNeil, and we are going to talk about Psalm 136 today. Greetings from my backyard storage barn with my kids and my wife all taking online classes and my wife teaching online classes. Trust me, this is the quietest place in my whole house. So here we are in my storage barn. I work in the finance office at Sunset, and I am also a deacon at Sunset Church of Christ, where I've been a member since I was in the youth group. And that was a long time ago. Today we're going to talk about Psalm 136. Now this one's kind of unique because this one has that echo, that back and forth echo that we don't find anywhere else in the Psalms. It keeps repeating that famous line, His love endures forever. I can imagine this psalm being used in a worship setting back in Old Testament times, where maybe the priest would read the verse and the audience or the group would echo back, His love endures forever. Was this a song? Maybe. I've always wondered about psalms and what they might have sounded like or what the melodies were. Somehow, I don't think that the tune was quite as catchy as the one we sing on Sunday morning sometimes about give thanks to the Lord. But who knows? Maybe they did. And here's something I didn't know until I was studying for this talk. Take a look at 1 Chronicles chapter 16, verses 39 through 41. David was at the tabernacle in Gibeon. He left Zadok and some other priests who regularly give thanks to the Lord, for His love endures forever. In quotes. It's in quotes. Could it be that those priests were worshiping with Psalm 136? Sure sounds like it. Or what about the dedication of Solomon's temple? See 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. Also verse 6. Solomon and the crowd were there, brand new temple, and they were offering prayers, they were offering sacrifices, when all of a sudden fire from heaven comes down, and it consumes all the offerings. And the whole glory of the Lord filled the temple. Think of how great that must have been. And what was the response of the people? Well, they worshiped, saying, He is good, His love endures forever. Is this the same psalm? Maybe. At the very least, it's the same idea. It's just interesting to imagine how many dozens and dozens and dozens of generations of believers have worshiped with these words. Let's read Psalm chapter 136. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of gods. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord of lords. His love endures forever. To Him alone who does great wonders. His love endures forever. Who by His understanding made the heavens. His love endures forever. Who spread out the earth upon the waters. His love endures forever. Who made the great lights. His love endures forever. The sun to govern the day, His love endures forever. The sun and the moon and the stars to govern the night, His love endures forever. To Him who struck down the firstborn of Egypt, His love endures forever. And brought Israel out from among them, His love endures forever. With a mighty hand and outstretched arm, His love endures forever. To Him who divided the Red Sea asunder, His love endures forever. And brought Israel through the midst of it, His love endures forever. But swept Pharaoh and his army into the Red Sea. His love endures forever. To Him who led His people through the wilderness. His love endures forever. To Him who struck down great kings. His love endures forever. And killed mighty kings. His love endures forever. Sihon, king of the Amorites. And Og, king of Bashan. His love endures forever. And gave their land as an inheritance. His love endures forever. An inheritance to His servant Israel. His love endures forever. He remembered us in our low estate. His love endures forever. And freed us from our enemies. His love endures forever. He gives food to every creature. His love endures forever. Give thanks to the God of heaven. His love endures forever. This psalm and its companion psalm, number 135, It's sometimes called the Great Halal. It's sometimes called Polyelios. Polyelios. It means many mercies. Depends on which group you're talking about. But the psalm seems to have one central comforting thread with all the evidence to support it. So the first bit of evidence seems to be how God is unique. He's not just a God among gods. He is the God of gods, the Lord of lords. Every population back in Old Testament days seemed to have their own gods and their own idols. Certainly Egypt did. Certainly the Canaanites did. But Jehovah God, he's not just the God of the Jews. He was the God of everybody and everything. And he has a love for us. Surely he's too big to love us. No? Well, in that case, it must be just a fleeting temporary love. No? No, it endures forever. Isn't this the most comforting thing ever? Let's see some examples of how great our God is. The psalmist goes first to creation. He alone does great wonders. He has understanding enough to make the heavens. He spread out the earth above the waters. He made the great lights to govern the days and nights, the sun and the moon. Don't we marvel at the same things today? I can only imagine what the people of the Old Testament times must have thought when they looked up to the skies. How mysterious it all must have been. Well, it's still mysterious to us today. I teach classes for our Boy Scout Troop's astronomy merit badge. Now, I cannot say that I'm an expert. I'm surely not. In fact, sometimes the boys know more than I do about the stars and the planets. But I will say this, the more that I learn, the more amazing it is. Do you feel that way too? I can remember a camp out last Labor Day weekend. We were up at Tres Ritos. That's up in New Mexico mountains, 8,000 feet elevation, perfectly clear night, no moon, no clouds, just stars. You could see the outlines of where the mountains were from the stars. It was amazing. You could just reach out and touch them. Now, I can't take a side in like that without thinking about how God is great enough to create something like that. And he created it with a breath. It's amazing. And I'll add something else here. The power of God is evident when you look out with a telescope. It's also evident when you look in with a microscope. The complexity of molecules and cells and atoms, it's just amazing. Isn't the whole world being turned upside down right now because of a virus? 125 nanometers long. That's not very big. Well, I know that modern science has a much greater understanding of chemistry and microbiology as well as astronomy than any of the folks in the Old Testament had. But it is no less amazing, and it is no less marvelous for us as ever before. Next in the psalm, the psalmist talks about the rescue from Egypt. God struck down the firstborn of Egypt, brought Israel out of slavery, divided the Red Sea, saved Israel, but not Pharaoh and the armies. He swept them away. God led Israel through the wilderness. He struck down the mighty kings like Og and Sihon. He gave the land of Canaan to Israel as an inheritance. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't spend a whole lot of time in my daily life dwelling on the rescue of Israel from Egypt. I know SIBI's Old Testament history classes flesh out all of these details of all of these stories. But even though it's not on my daily mind, think of how comforting these thoughts must have been to the people contemporary with this psalm. We don't really know who wrote this psalm. I like to think it was David or maybe someone in David's time. Some of my readings suggest that it might have been written later on, like in the time of Ezra, or maybe it was someone in Hezekiah's day. But maybe it was David or someone of that generation. Those passages in 1st and 2nd Chronicles seem to suggest that. Remember how many enemies that David faced in his lifetime. He fought the Moabites, Jebusites, Arameans, Ammonites, and Philistines, including one of them that was 9 feet tall. Well, he also faced danger from the house of Saul and later from his own house, from the house of Absalom. Well, if you are facing these dangers over and over again, facing these enemies that want to kill you, wouldn't you take great comfort in knowing that God has delivered his people from an even mightier enemy than that, from Egypt? And he did so with great signs and great wonders. Wouldn't you be able to draw on that strength when you were facing enemies on all sides? And that the God who did that for Israel loves you and always will love you? Well, maybe we don't face the same kinds of enemies that they did back then. Or maybe we do. Right now, our common enemy seems to be that COVID-19 virus. Can't we have the same kinds of confidence, though? Can't we see that God has brought the world through the bubonic plague and the Spanish flu and every other kind of disease and disaster? Surely we can be encouraged by the memory that God has been through all of this and his love for us endures forever. And yes, I know that God's will for us is sometimes, or maybe often, different from what we might have for ourselves. Christians have died from COVID-19. But we still have to have confidence in the enduring love of God, as he can bless us with that enduring love in heaven and not just on earth. God remembers us. The psalmist kind of ends the psalm saying that God remembered us in our low estate. God freed us from our enemies. God gives food to every creature. God, give thanks to the God of heaven. From what I've read, this is the only occurrence of the term the God of heaven that's listed in the Psalms. Compared to the glory of heaven, of course, we are in a low estate. How can God, enthroned so high in heaven, remember us? It must have something to do with the love for us that endures forever. It is true that he gives food to every creature. God is responsible not just to us, but to every animal, bug, bird, and fish. He sees to the needs of all of them. Now, we don't always get what we want, but we do get what God deems that we need. So to wrap this up, let's take some comfort in knowing that God's love for us endures forever. Because really, what can we count on to endure forever? In these days of the COVID-19 virus, a lot of things that we had become accustomed to have changed, right? You know, my wife sends me to the grocery store with a lengthy list, and I have never yet been able to find everything on it. You know, the supplies are just not what they used to be. Another thing that's changed in my whole life, I can never remember just staying home on a Sunday morning, barring some kind of great illness to me or one of my kids maybe. And it's been over a month since I've been able to meet on a Sunday morning with our brothers and sisters. I have enjoyed the video presentations that Sunset has prepared, and I've enjoyed these devotional talks that I've been listening to. But you know, nobody can ever say that it's as good as meeting with the brothers and sisters. It's all changed. And when was the last time I've had a waiter or waitress bring me some brisket and ribs to my table? It has been too long. So it's obvious that there are many things that have changed. They have not endured. But God's love will last. He is that good. Let's be thankful to him for all that we have and all that he has done for us and all that he will do for us forever.